So I think we're in a good place to get started. I think most people are here. And I just want to start off by saying welcome everybody and thank you for joining us once again. I'm coming to you live from JCS's Zoom room here in Miami, Florida. And today's workshop, this is actually our third workshop that we are doing live. We are presenting to you Help for Calming Your Child's Anxiety. So we all know that during this pandemic, it's been a little bit different for all of us because we are at home. We are doing a lot more things from home. So we want to make sure that we can recognize when our children are going through anxious situations and anxious behaviors and what we can do to help to calm some of that. So I'm sure, no doubt, lots of you are understanding that there's a lot of information going around and a lot of conflicting information that maybe has us all confused, whether we're children or adults. So we want to talk a little bit today about how to take that information in and make it work for our families, and also how to help soothe your children when they are feeling a little bit more anxious than normal. So once again, a little bit of housekeeping. We are going to go ahead and ask you to type in your questions in the chat. And my co-host and I will be answering those questions towards the end of the presentation. And again, once again, today's workshop is on calming your child's anxiety, that we are going to be presenting to you some information, some tips on how to help your children go through this difficult time while we are staying at home and staying safe. So a little bit about the PACT initiative. First, my name is Christina Lalama. I'm a licensed mental health counselor and clinical supervisor here at JCS. And we have a variety of different programs. Those of you that may be familiar with JCS may know that we do programs that really impact people of all ages and stages of life. We do talk to children as little as newborns and their families working through difficult times. And we work all the way with our seniors with providing support and providing meals. For more information on JCS's programs, please be sure to check jcsfl.org on the web for more information. I am the supervisor and project director of the PACT initiative, and PACT stands for Providing Adolescents and Children with Trauma-Informed Treatment. Our program is specifically geared for children and adolescents ages 6 through 17 who have experienced some type of trauma. And trauma for children can come in many, many formats, including abuse, whether physical or sexual. It can come through abandonment or through grief, through experiencing domestic violence, community violence, or after being separated from a parent. The work that we do in the PACT program includes individual therapy, and we make sure that we have parent components, which means that parents do engage in those therapy sessions with the clients and with the clinician, usually every week, but at minimum every other week. The model that we use is trauma-focused cognitive behavior therapy. It's an evidence-based model. All of the clinicians in the PACT program are licensed clinicians, and we do provide services in English and in Spanish. Again, for more information, visit our website, and for information on how to make a referral, all of that is going to be available to you on our website. So today's workshop is on anxiety. So many of you may have been wondering or may be thinking, what does anxiety have to do with the trauma program? Well, what we understand is that after children have experienced trauma, or when things are really, really tumultuous or they change up a lot, chaotic, the way they are now, children tend to build up anxiety. That anxiety comes from unknowing or not understanding fully what it is that's going on. Anxiety can also be seen in adults. So many times there's anxiety all throughout the family when we are all in a situation that's difficult to manage. During these stay-at-home times, there have been a lot of questions that have been raised where people don't really have a lot of answers. So we are understanding that families across the board do have more experiences with anxiety in the last few months. Now, anxiety in families, when there is a lot of stress, there can be different family members who experience anxiety in a different way. Not knowing, not understanding, and not having answers, not being able to explain those answers or the situation at hand to your children can bring about a lot of stress for adults. It can make adults feel helpless or hopeless. It can make them feel angry because that tension is building up where they can't provide anybody else with answers, even for themselves. And also it may make us feel frightened. We don't know what to expect or what is to come, and so we start to feel more stress and anxiety. Sadly, As adults experience anxiety, sometimes that's transmitted to children. In addition to that, because we're not able to give our children the information that they may be asking, we feel more stressed and that anxiety continues to build. So we're actually feeding off of each other in those situations. However, it's important to remember that children will show or display their anxiety in different ways than adults will. Adults tend to have more developed vocabulary, and they'll have the words to express themselves a little bit better. Children, sadly, don't always understand that. They won't know how to express their anxiety or what their feelings of anxiety really are. So instead of that, we may see different behaviors. And here you have a list of those behaviors that children may exhibit. Children may have difficulty concentrating. And I know that a lot of parents now, with school being handled through the home, are seeing firsthand how their children are struggling with concentration. They may have a difficult time sitting to finish one worksheet or to sit through their virtual class. That difficulty concentrating comes from them not being able to fully have a grasp on what's going on in their community at this time. Children may exhibit trouble sleeping. They may not have an easy time going to sleep at night or staying asleep at night. You may see that their patterns of sleep are disturbed. They may be sleeping more, or they may be sleeping less. There could be changes in eating patterns, and much like the sleep patterns, that could be that they're eating more or eating less. They may be hungry at different hours that's away from their normal schedule, and they may be eating things that they normally would not eat. That's what we usually call, as adults, we'll say stress eating, when we start eating snacks or comfort foods, and children may seek that in order to feel better. We also may see that children are irritable without explanation. They may go from what we call 0 to 100 in the blink of an eye. Because that stress is unresolved, they usually do not have any other way of expressing it other than lashing out at someone else. And that could be a sibling, it could be a parent, it could be anybody else that's in the house at this time. It might be hard for children to calm down and to show you that they are able to relax themselves after a while. We all get upset, and those are normal reactions to difficult situations. However, if the child has a hard time calming themselves down, that could be a warning sign that anxiety has worked its way into that child's mindset. Children often worry and have negative thoughts, but at this point, it's difficult for them to stop those thoughts. So those thoughts may creep in at any time, and then they have a hard time managing other things that they need to be doing. Other feelings and behaviors include feeling tense or fidgety, crying or clinging when they're usually a little more independent. Maybe they regress in their behavior, such as wetting the bed or sucking their thumbs. And more importantly, they may avoid topics or situations that remind them of those stressful situations that we are all facing. So remember, children don't always have the words to express what's troubling them. So we have to be a little bit of a detective and figure out what might be troubling that child. During this time where we are staying at home, all of our routines have changed. Those changes in the way we do our day-to-day have really impacted all of us. We no longer are sitting in traffic, which is a relief for a lot of us, but we're also spending all our time at home. And sometimes not being able to have that flexibility and having time for ourselves can bring about those feelings of stress and anxiety. We are around our children more and more these days because school and work from home and limited opportunities to go out and no visit are reminding us that we are in each other's spaces more often. So children's anxiety, as it's going up, we need to be able to face that situation and help them through it, because it's also going to make us feel more relaxed, and it's going to help us resolve these problems a little bit quicker. So how do we help children with struggling with anxiety? We're going to follow a couple of steps as we go through the next few slides, where we talk about the different steps parents and caregivers can share and can use with their children who are experiencing anxiety. The first thing we want to do is listen. Now, this one sounds like a basic step that probably a lot of you think you do all the time. When we are talking about a child that is distressed, whether they've experienced trauma or not, listening is the #1 thing to help them through that difficult time. We need to find out what is the child's concern. And keep in mind, younger children may not be able to express that concern fully. So you may have to just follow along with what they say or monitor their body language as they're trying to express the situation to you. Actively listen to their concerns. If there's something they say, it's okay to repeat a little part of it just to make sure that you are on their track. They'll tell you if you're wrong, and they'll let you know if you are following them correctly or not. Again, take note of their body language. As they speak to you, are they tensed up? Are they curled up maybe next to you as they talk about it? Do they pace or fidget as they talk about the situation? All of those could be indicators. Even if they tell you that they feel okay and that everything's fine, those could be indicators that they are struggling with that anxiety. Remember to validate their emotions. As adults, we have a hard time making sense of everything that's going on. Children may not be doing so rationally. They may be looking at a situation that's far scarier than we really know it is. So it's okay for us to validate that for them. If the child says to you, "I'm scared," it's okay for them to be scared, and validate that for them. Let them know, "I understand that you're scared. Thank you for telling me that." Versus telling them, "Oh, don't be scared. That's no big deal." When we do that, we're shutting down the child's feelings and emotions, and we're not meeting them where they are at that moment. Let's think about an example outside of a situation of the pandemic. When a child tells you that there's monsters under their bed, telling them that there's no monsters under the bed doesn't help to ease them. However, if you go in and you check with them and you tell them, "Oh, we checked, we must have scared those monsters away," they usually feel better. So it's important to validate their emotions so that they can understand that you are on their side and you understand what they're going through. Encourage respectful conversations. So if the child doesn't feel like talking about it, we're going to say it's okay. We don't want to force it out of them either, because then they may not come and tell you anything going forward. What we want them to feel like is that you are ready to listen whenever they're ready to talk. So if they say they don't want to talk about it right now, it's okay for you to respond, "I understand you don't want to talk about this right now, but I'll be here whenever you're ready to talk about it." Okay? Continue to check in with them. If they had a nightmare, if they weren't feeling well, check in on them a little bit later. Find out how they're feeling at the moment that you check in with them, and let them know that you just want to make sure that they're okay. And again, follow up with them. And maybe a few days later, or maybe while they're watching something that might remind them of the situation. Follow up with them, and again, remind them that you'll always be available to listen to them. The next step we want to do is not avoid difficult conversations. One of parents' main concerns is that if they bring up a topic or if they engage in a conversation with their child, that's going to upset the child. Remember that it's not your discussion of or your conversation about any specific topic that's going to upset the child. The child is upset about the situation itself. So talking about the situation of staying at home or not being able to go visit grandma isn't upsetting. It's not being able to go visit people that's upsetting them. Answer their questions honestly. Consider what the child's age is and give them information up to their age level. We don't want to scare them any further by giving them information that's beyond their scope of understanding. Answer questions and acknowledge that you are also afraid or how you're feeling about the situation. Let them see firsthand that it's all right to be afraid and that we still function even though we are feeling scared or concerned. Let the child's interests and thoughts guide the conversation. They'll ask the questions to what they want to know. So there's no need for you to give extra information if the child is not asking for that. Maybe the child wants to know when they can go on their Disney vacation. And you may want to let them know that once the park's open, you'll be able to explore going to that vacation. You don't want to give them any kind of date, because at some point that date's going to get here. And if for some reason we can't make it, we don't want to be disappointing them with that. Check in after you give them an answer. Ask them how that makes them feel. And again, go back to the first step when we talked about listening, which was validating those feelings. Now, again, children come with a lot of questions, some things that we never would have occurred of thinking. It's important to acknowledge when you don't have those answers. Answer them honestly. And if you don't know something, you just don't know. It's important for you to let them know that maybe you can find the answers and that you'll look it up after bedtime, or that you'll look it up for them, or you'll ask somebody about those questions that they have. It's important to not engage in further what we'll say is maybe propaganda or further projections or guessing what something might happen. Instead of telling them, well, I heard that blah, 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 we want to tell them something concrete. They're working on figuring out how to reopen the parks safely so that we can all go and enjoy the swings again. Don't make any predictions or promises. Don't start telling them that, oh, by June we'll all be fine, because we really don't have that answer. We'll have to let them know that it's important for us to check and follow guidelines so that everybody stays safe. And remember, once again, to tailor that information to your child's age. Again, we just want to answer the questions that they have and not offer more information that may just confuse or further frighten them. Now, this one's important for all of us involved, adults and children. We want to encourage hope. We want to make sure that difficult situations, even though they have negative consequences, that children understand they can also have positive outcomes. It's important to remain optimistic and instill hope for the future. We want children to understand that we will get through this and that all the situation is temporary. Although schools are closed now, schools will reopen at some point and they'll be able to see their teachers and their friends again. When you maintain hope and encourage positive thinking, you're actually developing your own resiliency skills, and your children learn to do that. They learn to find the positive things in the storm, and they'll learn to focus on those positive outcomes versus focusing on the negative ones. Now, this one's important for all of us, and it's really going to help all of our mental health overall. Monitoring our information sources. So is the TV on all day? And again, if we remove ourselves from the situation of the pandemic and we think about here in South Florida, hurricane season, if they're always talking about hurricanes and always talking about how deadly storms have been in the past, it may cause unnecessary fear in our families. So it's important for us to filter and to really understand what it is that we have on TV. Is the news on all the time? That may not be necessary in order for us to get the information that we need. So go ahead and figure out a specific time when you should be getting your information. Look for certain times where you can maybe look things up online, or when you can watch the news when the children are in bed or perhaps engaging in another activity. Is the news on all day? Because that could really trigger anxious feelings and emotions in anybody. So maybe we need to turn it off or put something else on the TV so that the background noise isn't the constant mention of what we are all afraid of. How are they sharing information? Are they talking about it, again, through fighting and through being divided, or are they sharing information that the community can use in order to build and to come out of these situations in a positive manner? Make sure that you monitor what your children are looking up online, because it's very easy for children to go online and they're very savvy and can find information pretty quickly. We want to make sure that they are using reputable websites and that they are looking for information that's pertinent or related to something that they need to know. Monitor the searches that they do online and search with them. Make it part of your together time so that children can understand that you are interested, and you're also going to help them to decipher which information is appropriate and adequate for someone their age. Make sure that if they are looking for information about school, let's say their school in particular, that they go maybe to their school county website or to their school's website. If they're looking for information on the weather, they should go to the National Weather Service website. And if they're looking for medical information, go to a National Institute of Health or other kind of reputable, established website. Getting information right from the source is going to help us to avoid getting sensationalized information that may do more harm than good. Now, I've talked a lot about how to take care of our children and how to watch after our little ones. But what's really important and what's at the heart of it all is for caregivers to take care of themselves. Make sure that you don't overlook your own self-care. It's really important that if you are well, you will be able to help other people. If you are feeling overwhelmed, your children will probably pick up on that and feel overwhelmed as well. Share positive ways that you manage stress. So what do you do for yourself? When we were able to go out and socialize with other people, we were probably meeting up with friends on the weekends, or maybe going to an exercise class. Now that we are staying at home, we can still do a lot of these meetings and a lot of these situations while we are safe in our own living rooms. So make sure that you still make time for exercise, watching a movie, whether it's by yourself, guilty pleasure, or if you are watching with other members of your family. Take time to read a book or to engage in arts and crafts. Anything like that that you can do from your home and to give you a little bit of space from those difficult moments will help you to relax yourself. When children see that you are engaging in a positive activity, one that brings you a little bit of calm and happiness, they will also find activities that they can do to bring themselves that same type of relaxation. Spend time together as a family. And I know we talked earlier about, since everyone is spending a lot of time together because we have so many things to take care of, it's important that once everyone is finished with what their obligations are, that we take a little downtime and spend that time together as a family. Going back to watching a movie, playing a game together, or maybe baking something together. And one of the things that really can help out is when people create some kind of caring act for someone else. Perhaps they can create a care package for another family member or neighbor who may not have access to go outside and get groceries or something of that nature. We can prepare that and show our children how to stay safe when we deliver it by leaving it on a doorstep and letting the person know that the package is outside for them. All of these kinds of acts of self-care are going to be helping children to see that they can manage these situations and keep themselves safe at the same time. There are many activities that children can engage in to help them regain that sense of calm. There are some quick exercises that we can do to help children to calm down pretty much anywhere we are. Because we are staying at home, we should have access to different things in the house that we can use to help children to stay calm. So one of the things we like to do is we like to take a little mini vacation in our mind. Have children imagine their favorite place. And it can be as silly or as realistic or as imaginary as possible. It's like taking a mini vacation wherever they are. Just have them go there and have them think about what it smells like to be there. What does it look like to be there? What does the sun feel like on their face? All of those things give them a break from their active mind of thinking of all the problems that they may be facing to think about a time when something was more relaxing and more pleasant. Have children make a list of their favorite things. What are some things that really bring them joy and happiness? Maybe it's a toy, or maybe it's hanging out with a good friend. Have them think about that and maybe reminisce on how it feels to have that good friend or how it is to play with that specific toy that they have. All of those things can help to bring about good feelings that they've had before, and it helps them to stay calm in that moment. Creating lists is very, very soothing for a lot of children, and not about writing or anything like that, but just verbalizing them out loud and turning it into a game. So maybe we're going to say the names of animals alphabetically. And so we'll each take turns using a letter of the alphabet to name an animal. Another thing that's important is keeping their hands busy. Having children squeeze something, whether it be a stress ball, Play-Doh, or silly putty. There's a variety of games and toys available where children can use in their hands. We know that we heard about fidget spinners not too long ago. And there are different toys such as tangles that can easily fit into your hand, and they also fit in your pocket. And children can use it to help themselves, to help soothe themselves when they are experiencing a difficult situation. Now, with all of these tools and all of these tips that we have, sometimes we work our hardest to make it work and help our children to feel better. But sometimes it seems like we just need a little more help. And first and foremost, it's okay to ask for more help. Feel free to reach out to your local counseling agency or call in to a call-in number where you can ask more questions about making a referral for your child or even for yourself. These times are very difficult for us, and it's important for us to understand and to remember that there are resources available to us. If your child's anxiety is severe, if it persists, if it interferes in their everyday life, it's a good idea to get some help. So go ahead and call. For example, JCS has the 211 helpline services where you can call and ask questions about where children can be participating in some therapy services to help them through these times. It's important to seek help early so that we don't let the problem get out of hand and really be something that's difficult to manage later on. And for parents and caregivers, remember that it's okay for you to seek help as well. Remember that you can only give as much as you are feeling. So if you are feeling well, you'll be able to do well with your children. If you are feeling stressed, it may not be as easy for you to help out children. So with that, that concludes our presentation for today. And I hope that you have some questions to share. Please feel free to add them to the chat, And I will go ahead and connect with our co-host and see if we have any questions that we can answer right now.
Christina, the first question is, how do you help toddlers, 2 to 3-year-olds with anxieties?
Well, toddlers, I think it's a great question because toddlers, I like to think of a special group of children because they do have wonderful imaginations and it seems like endless energy. When toddlers are exhibiting anxious behaviors, we may see them self-soothing or trying to self-soothe, like sucking their thumb. They may be in that process. It may delay that process of maybe potty training. So we want to make sure that the child is in a position to be able to express that to you. If you see that the child is maybe whiny or clingy, they cry a lot and they're not able to separate, it's okay for us to engage that child in a situation where we try to calm them down. Hold your child and remind them that it's okay, that you are going to be with them and that you're going to help them through. If it's a situation where the toddler needs to be left with someone because perhaps you have to go to work, provide a transition item, an item where a child maybe remembers you with something. It could be your blanket or it could be your sweater that they can hold on to and still think of whoever you are to them, and they can keep that little piece of them with you. Toddlers obviously don't have the vocabulary that older children have, so it's a lot harder for them to express it. But you can always ask them the questions and usually they're able to answer. So talk with them and engage with your toddler the way you would with with a school-age child, so that they can try and get that vocabulary going with you. And again, if there are questions about toddlers and how to interact with them, I highly recommend that you dial 211 and ask for Help Me Grow. Help Me Grow is specifically for children that are on the younger ages, and they can answer questions about how to manage specifically children's difficult struggles during this time. Any other questions?
Being able to take attendance in that thing. Okay, so I'm gonna start by calling the names.
We do have one more question. Hold on, Christina. Let me just
Sure.
make sure everybody's muted.
So
Okay.
Alejandra Metzia.
So go ahead and feel free to type your questions into the chat. Type your questions into the chat. We are here to answer your questions as best as we can. My co-host will read those questions to me and we'll go ahead and provide as many answers as we can.
The next response in the chat. My 8-year-old son's anxiety about germs have stopped him from eating his favorite foods. What kind of suggestions would you have to offer?
So I think that's an interesting one. I'm going to assume that means that the food that your son likes are finger foods, maybe chicken nuggets or French fries or something of that nature, something where they're picking that food up with their hands. Go ahead and encourage them. This is a wonderful opportunity to teach children about our hygiene, that if they wash their hands prior, that they should be able to eat their food the way they liked it. The other thing to remember is that their food has been prepared, and so once it's hot, there shouldn't be any germs on that food. So washing their hands prior to eating, enjoying their meal, and then being able to wash their hands afterwards should give them a little bit of relief that they are not going to get sick from eating that food. The other thing that's important to remind them of is that perhaps they can eat the food without touching it with their hands. Maybe they can utilize the utensil or just eat it in a different way so that they are comfortable in getting their nourishment. We want children to remember that eating and maintaining that healthy lifestyle is what's going to keep them and help them to fight off any kind of illness. So remind your child that washing their hands prior to eating will help to keep them safe.
Another question from one of our participants. What's the best method to calm down my 3-year-old while he throws his screaming tantrum?
Well, one thing that we want to do, this is a tough one because we don't always know what triggers that tantrum. So what we may want to do with the child is make sure that they are not in any position to hurt themselves or hurt someone else. So if they are throwing things or if they are on the floor, make sure there are no items around them where they can get hurt. The other thing we want to do is just remind them and talk to them in a soothing voice. So without raising your voice or yelling, keep talking to them in a calming voice. Mommy is here, or I'm still here with you, so that they understand that you are still sitting with them. And just kind of, sadly, you kind of have to let a lot of these tantrums ride out for a little bit until they calm down. Whatever it is that's bothering the children is going to just continue to happen until they get it out of that system. So make sure that they are safe and just talk to them in a calming voice. Be sure not to use any kind of threats or any kind of language where it may escalate the situation. So we just want to remind them that you're still here, that you perhaps, if you feel safe to do so, that they're not swinging, go ahead and touch their arm or their leg so that they know that you are there. And at some point, they usually calm down and they walk back over. Many times when children are having tantrums, what they really want is to feel secure. So we want to give them a little bit of space to let some of that out, and then we'll go ahead and re-engage with touch, whether it be hugging or holding hands, so that they start to feel better and calm down.
Hello?
I have a
I
question.
hear you, but I can't see you.
I don't know if you can hear me.
In the corner? Hear me now?
Hello?
Hello?
Yes, Michelle, go ahead and ask your question. If you're not
Okay.
able to post
This question is related to me, but I know some kids might go through that process. So I just want to know, how can I help myself as well and other kids that's going through the same thing that I'm going through. I lost my mom, but I still have like a fear. I don't know why. I always been so close to her. We shared the love together. But at the same time, I have anxiety at my house where my parents raised me. When I'm outside the household, over a friend house or a member, a family member, I do not, that anxiety is not around me, but it's only a fear. It only interact at my household.
Okay. So and if I'm understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, you indicated that you grew up in that house and your parents were in that house. And then once you lost them, so the memories, and it's probably a beautiful memory, having memories of your family in your home. And so being in there, and I think now probably seeing that the house is not full the way it was before might be bringing about those memories of your family who you've lost. What I'm thinking is very likely, it's very traumatic for people, whether we're adults or children, to suddenly have a loss and to suddenly feel that emptiness. So what may be indicated for you is that engaging in some type of treatment, whether it's individual therapy or group therapy, so that you can process those feelings and still feel happiness or joy inside your house where you do have those beautiful memories. So the therapy could help out a lot, because what it's going to do is help you to work through those feelings of fear and sadness when you are in your home, because we all know that changing locations isn't necessarily going to be the solution for you. So I highly recommend considering some sort of treatment or support group where you can talk about those feelings with someone and help someone, so someone can help you process through that. And I also want to thank you for sharing that information. And I really, really wish you the best.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
No problem.
I'll say it. That's okay.
Are there any other questions, Heather?
Yes, my son's biggest habits are lightly throwing items or sometimes trying to hit a person, usually softly, or even sometimes spitting. How can I help break these habits that he knows are wrong?
Okay, great question. So I don't know the age of your child, but even still, the message is going to be the same. So if a child is angry, we are going to be okay with them being angry, because we all can get angry at any time. But we do not want is for them to be able to hurt another person, because that's never okay. So if the child is throwing an object, even if it's, whether it's at the person or at another person or just throwing an object, we want them to know that throwing those objects are not okay, because someone could get hurt. Not to mention they could break whatever it is that they're throwing, whether it be their toy or a pillow or whatever it may be. They could really hurt someone or break something else. We want the child to develop a better way of expressing that anger. So it may be better that once the child throws that, we get down to their level and we talk to them directly in a calm voice, letting them know that I understand you're angry. So that's where we're going back to that validating we talked about earlier in our presentation. I know that you're angry, and it's fine that you're angry, but you may not throw items. So setting boundaries with children in these difficult times is important, because we don't want to tell them they're not allowed to feel the way they feel, but we want to redirect that behavior so that it's not about them throwing things or possibly hurting other people, but more about them expressing those feelings safely. Also, it's important when a child is calm that we talk about these things. So maybe the next day your child is calm and he's relaxed, and it's okay to sit and talk with him that what happened yesterday, throwing things was not okay. Let's figure out a way for you to express when you are feeling angry. And for some children, it may be that they ask for a little bit of time by themselves. It's not that you assign them to time out, but maybe they pull themselves into a small, quiet corner, or they pull themselves to a quiet room so they can calm themselves down. This way they are assured that they're not going to hurt anyone else or throw things or do things that are inappropriate, and they have a few minutes to calm themselves down. So addressing the issue with your child is probably the best bet, and making sure that they understand what you accept and what you will not accept. And throwing things, hitting people, or spitting at people is in no way acceptable.
And Christina, can you add to that and share with the audience some alternatives to those behaviors that are problematic?
Yes. So again, going back to when children want to express anger, perhaps they're angry at one of their siblings, and all they think of to do, younger children in particular, is to take a swing at someone. They may think, okay, I'm angry with you, I'll take a swing at you. Again, mom or dad or whomever is caring for children can come down to their level, as in their eye level, meet them eye to eye, and in a calm voice deliver what an alternative behavior could be. So again, validate the feeling. I understand you're angry, but you may not hit your brother. Okay, so we're telling them what we don't want them to do. If you are angry, you may sit down for a minute. You may squeeze, perhaps we give them a squeezy ball or something that they can squeeze when they're angry. You can, color on this piece of paper so that they get something to kind of scribble on for a little bit. We want to give them an alternative, safe activity so that they are not causing harm to another person. When it comes to, again, they want to spit at someone, okay, which is not appropriate, and especially not during these times. We want children to know that that's not okay, and that if they want to express something, help them to find the words that they need. So perhaps we have to teach them different ways to express how they're feeling angry. They may say, I'm mad, or I'm angry, or I'm upset, or I don't want to talk. Any of those would be much more acceptable than throwing something or spitting at another person. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Christina. One final question before we conclude this evening's webinar. How would you help or assist an 11-year-old that has anxiety due to seeing ghosts or spirits?
Well, that's a tough one, but not one that can't be managed. Usually it depends on a lot of different factors, and that's what we do when we have a biopsychosocial assessment. Usually we'll screen a child and see what is it that, or where this child is getting these, where they're getting this background from. Does the family have some sort of maybe cultural experience where maybe they believe in ghosts or they don't believe in ghosts, and the child is seeing, having apparitions, visions of things like that? What we want to do is to help the child to get some grounding techniques to help them to really work through that fear. We can't help it if they are seeing these things, but what we can help them with is managing the way that they react to that. So one of the things we want to do is help them to stay calm during those situations and be able to express themselves to someone that will be a help to them. So perhaps they feel comfortable talking to their grandparent about what they're seeing. And maybe that person can help them work their way through not being afraid or feeling afraid, but still feeling in control. So we would probably assess the child and make sure that how like what the level of interference these apparitions are for them, and to help them to develop calming and management techniques so that they can cope whenever they have those situations. Usually, once a child has someone to talk to and they can express feelings about it, they start to see those visions less and less, which is helpful to them because they feel like they have it under control. So I would highly recommend that the child be screened, because perhaps something traumatic or scary has happened and they need to work their way through that in order to reduce the number of visions that they may be having. Any other questions?
That is all, Christina. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Heather. And on behalf of JCS and all of our presentations and the presenters going forward, I really want to wish you all a wonderful, wonderful week. Please be safe, and thank you so much for joining us. We will be back with another web series, so please stay tuned in the next couple of days, and you'll probably find a couple of other workshop topics that will help you out. Again, on behalf of JCS, I thank you for participating. Have a wonderful and safe week.
Same to you.
Thank you.